It's time for 515 Fantasy Football.
I know football. Are you ready for some football?
Domination on Sundays begins with listening to these guys on Thursdays.
You ready for this?
Over 40 years of fantasy football experience between them.
Yeah!
One is a proud veteran of the United States Marine Corps, husband and father, entering his 19th year of fantasy competition. Brian Eikenberry. The other, also a proud husband and father, is one of the winningest fantasy minds in the state. Celebrating 25 years of excellence, Andy Hall.
Let's get the game on!
It's showtime. The 515 Fantasy Football Show with your hosts, Andy Hall and Brian Eikenberry.
Welcome in, fellow fantasy fanatics. Week 4 is in the books. Survival of the fittest ain't for the faint of heart, that's for sure. You got issues, we got solutions to every conundrum under the big fireball in the sky. You're 0-4, you're 1-3, stop. Take a breath. We're here to help you right the ship, and you're here to find out how. Andy Hall alongside Brian Eikenberry, between us over 40 years of experience in the fantasy football game. We've seen this before, Brian. This is not new to us.
No, it happens. It happens quite a bit, and the important thing is you still have a lot of games left. A lot of games left. Do not just start fire sailing your team and thinking it's over and hooking up your buddies. It's not over yet. Waiver wires produce results, my friends.
Let's say you play 13 games in your fantasy regular season. A lot of
Yes.
leagues do 13, some do 14. All right, so let's say you do 13. Okay, let's say you're 0-4. Let's say you pick up a hot waiver wire ad this week. Go on a run. What's stopping you from going 9-4 and being one of the top seeds in your fantasy playoffs?
Absolutely nothing, and I'll give you a perfect example of a running back that was on the waiver. LeGarrette freaking Blount. I picked up Blount, threw him in the starting lineup. Boom, 100 and some change. That can change your season, especially if you were the Dalvin Cook owner.
Well,
and you picked up Blount. Okay, sure, you lost one, but you have a capable person here. Good Lord, people. You got to play the waiver wire. That's how you win championships.
yep, nobody wins their championship on draft day. You probably get off to a good start that way if you grabbed a Kareem Hunt, and you grabbed any number of these guys that are hitting early, but things can always change too, and that's the game of fantasy football. Invite you to come find us on social media. Like us on Facebook, 515 Fantasy Football. Follow us on Twitter at 515 Fantasy. I'm at Andy Hall Radio. He's at Ike FFB. That's IKEFFB. The show, of course, on the radio weekly at 1350 AM and 102.1 FM, ESPN Radio, Des Moines, Iowa. But we're also digital, so if you miss any part of the show, you can always go back and listen at your pace, at your leisure. Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, and online at espndesmoines.com. Maybe you're looking for more in-depth help from Brian and or myself. You have options.
Yes, you do. If you head out to patreon.com, go ahead and search 515 Fantasy Football. We've got options out there for you. We have a 3-tiered approach out there for you to kind of be a part of the show, help contribute to the show, help you in a sense. We can get your bargain bins 24 hours early, or you can get the bargain bins plus 1 hour private access to us just an hour before game day, or you can get full and complete team management out of us if that's what you so desire. So head out Patreon, patreon.com.
First week of regular buys. 4 teams not participating in Week 5. They are the Falcons, the Broncos, the Saints, and the Redskins. Regardless, a busy show today. Nearly 2 hours. We'll break down all the matchups, grade all the fantasy-relevant players, hit Brian with 3 of fantasy's most difficult questions in the pop quiz, bargain bin picks later on, sponsored by Twisted Vine Brewery, Listener League recap presented by Iowa Firecracken. Top-notch, friends. Let's begin with some headlines of fantasy notes. Several notable injuries were sustained in Week 4, including Vikings rookie running back Dalvin Cook, who tore his ACL, will miss the rest of the season. It's unfortunate, too, because he was looking really good.
Well, and I was listening on the radio. I was en route from Twisted Vine back to my home, and they said, hey, Dalvin Cook's back out on the sidelines walking around. And I'm like, wow, that's awesome for my friend. He's not out. We get back to my place. I'm like, no, he was walking around the sidelines afterwards. He came back out of the locker room. And it's like, Well, he was walking because he has a whole bunch of painkillers in his body, and it was already torn, so it didn't matter.
It's true. So he is outright droppable outside of dynasty leagues, folks, unfortunately. Jerick McKinnon was also hurt in the game, not nearly as seriously, though, with an ankle injury. Latavius Murray, of course, the guy going forward in Minnesota. At least he'll be the first guy. Seahawks rookie running back Chris Carson suffered a significant ankle injury in Sunday night's win over Indy. Part of it was a leg break, too, just below the knee, I understand. He will miss the rest of the season. Rookie J.D. McKissick, one of this week's more interesting waiver pickups. Don't forget about Thomas Rawls. I think he'll be the guy going forward. Eddie Lacy, yes, they'll give him some work, but I don't see it. I haven't seen it since the preseason when I called Eddie Lacy a huge bust. So there's that. Titans quarterback Marcus Mariota suffered a hamstring injury on Sunday that required an MRI earlier this week. Brandon Weeden has been signed off the trash heap on a one-year deal. Marcus Mariota is back at practice this week. They're saying that he actually might play this weekend. I'm not holding my breath. If they have to plug Brandon Weeden in, that is a really terrible thing for all Titans fantasy players. Let's just say that.
Do you remember when he was like the next big thing? People were like, he's so mature already because he's older.
He was 28.
And all this stuff.
Yep.
And he's going to be awesome. He's already making good decisions. And then, wow.
That's what happens when your first team is the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
Bad things. Bills wide receiver Jordan Matthews needs thumb surgery. He's expected to miss at least a month. Not that you're missing him much because the Bills' passing offense is pretty terrible. Falcons wide receiver Julio Jones left Sunday's game with a hip flexor injury. It's not believed to be serious, and he might actually play this weekend. Wide receiver Mohamed Sanu also left the game with a hamstring injury. He is out 2 to 3 weeks. Giants wide receiver Odell Beckham said he is, quote, all right after suffering both finger and ankle injuries in the team's Week 4 loss against the Bucs. You see his hand, by the way?
Yeah, where it was backwards at like a 95-degree angle.
I mean, it's not quite JPP. That's about as bad as it gets for hands for me. More precisely fingers, I guess. But, yeah, Odell Beckham apparently is going to be okay. He's back at practice. Running back Paul Perkins exited the game with an injury to his ribs. Wayne Gallman is the pickup to take a good look at there, even though they're saying Paul Perkins could theoretically play this weekend. Wayne Gallman looked like a better back to me.
I don't really care either way.
You don't want a Giants runner.
No.
Jets running back Matt Forte not practicing this week. That's good news for Bilal Powell and Elijah McGuire owners. Raiders quarterback Derek Carr dealing with a back issue, expected to miss 2 to 6 weeks. The transverse something or another, Brian. I'm not a doctor, but this is something Tony Romo dealt with a couple of seasons ago. He missed one game, I believe, and was back out on the field. So, I mean, I think Derek Carr, from what I'm hearing, could miss the low end of the 2 to 6 weeks. It probably won't be worse, but you just never know with spinal injuries.
Well, yeah, I mean, the risk of re-aggravation there, too. If hey, I'm feeling good, let's get back in there, and then it could be one of those, he just gets knocked down, and it pops again, and you're out of here.
Here's an early pop quiz question for you. With E.J. Manuel likely to be the starter in Oakland, are Amari Cooper and or Michael Crabtree automatic starts?
No.
I know, right? Isn't that weird? Especially in the case of Amari Cooper, who, by the way, I believe is wide receiver 83 right now.
Yeah.
And graded by
terrible.
Pro Football Focus as the worst wide receiver in the league right now. Amari freaking Cooper, Brian.
From stud to dud real quick.
Amazing. Bears head coach John Fox has announced that rookie quarterback Mitch Trubisky will be the team's starter going forward. We wondered how long it would take, and here we are coming into Week 5. He's starting on Monday Night Football against the Vikings, Brian.
Terrible
what are they
idea.
thinking?
So stupid.
Get through that tough matchup. Why would you want to throw him to the Wolves like that? Just, wow. Packers running back Ty Montgomery has several broken ribs, but has been practicing on a limited basis this week. May actually play Sunday. Another stupid decision, in my opinion. Jamal Williams also banged up but may play. And then there's Aaron Jones, the one healthy guy, and he may actually be the odd man out, strangely enough, this weekend.
Yeah, well, when it happened, I said broken ribs are better than bruised ribs.
Right.
Which is stupid, but that's the way it works. But I think this is one of those where the running back's in there to block. Aaron Rodgers is going to take this one on his shoulders, and he's going to do it all himself.
And he's going to have to do it without wide receiver Devontae Adams, who remains in the league's concussion protocol, may not play this weekend. So I'm thinking a whole lot of Jordy Nelson, a whole lot of Randall Cobb for sure, maybe Geronimo Allison, but I think they're also going to start getting Martellus Bennett involved.
You betcha. This is the week. If you have Martellus Bennett, fire him up.
And it's weird because Martellus Bennett was never traditionally a guy that you could count on past September 30th. He was a guy that would always explode in September when he was with Chicago. I remember this being like a thing where, like, you get to October 1st, you could drop him because he won't do anything. That doesn't seem to be the case in Green Bay. Vikings wide receiver Michael Floyd has completed his 4-game suspension, as has Bucs running back Doug Martin. Both players going to be eased back into their team's game plans. And for those that want to roll Doug Martin right out without much practice on a short week, I don't think that's a smart idea. We'll get to that in the matchup. Cardinals wide receiver Jerron Brown played 82 of 86 snaps week 4 against the Niners. The return of John Brown was bad news for J.J. Nelson, not Jerron Brown.
I will cover that in my matchup.
Colts quarterback Andrew Luck back at practice on a limited basis. Likely needs another 2-3 weeks before he sees game action. Redskins cornerback Josh Norman suffered a broken rib and damage to the lining of his lung in the team's Week 4 loss to the Chiefs. Head coach Jay Gruden thinks he'll miss 2 to 4 weeks of action.
What kind of test do you have to just says, yeah, you bruised the lining of your lung? Great.
I don't know, but it just sounds god-awful.
Yeah,
I want
it's
no part
be
of
terrible.
it. Our first set of matchups, Brian and I begin with a Thursday nighter in which I believe you can start everybody. I'll break it down more specifically next on 515 Fantasy Football on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. It is the 515 Fantasy Football Show, heard each and every Thursday on 1350 AM and 102.1 FM, ESPN Radio, Des Moines, Iowa. I'm Andy Hall. That's Brian Eikenberry. Again, we invite you to come see us on our social media platforms. We are on Facebook, 515 Fantasy Football, on Twitter at 515 Fantasy. Brian, I'm getting a ton of action on Twitter, man. A lot of questions coming in from all over the world. It's really cool.
Yeah, I absolutely love contradicting everything you say. It's fantastic.
Yeah, when Brian does get a chance, by the way, and a lot of times I sneak him under the radar and you don't catch him, so you don't have your chance to contradict everything I say. But it is kind of fun once in a while, I will admit.
Yeah, if someone specifically tags me in it along with the 515 Fantasy, I'm going to come over the top.
At Andy Hall Radio, that's me. At IkeFFB, that's IKEFFB, that's Brian. We invite you to reach out. We love interacting with our listeners. Typically, they're pretty quick answers from us. If you're looking for a little more, try Patreon. That's the way to go. Our first matchup of Week 5, Brian, tonight's big game, New England at Tampa Bay. Do you think off the bat, before I even start breaking this down, that everybody and the water boy could probably start?
It's going to be 45-42.
Or it's going to be 13-7.
Yeah.
Let's begin on the Patriots side, shall we? Tom Brady, of course, an A grade. Tampa's allowing over 300 yards passing per game and has been burned by everybody, including Case Keenum of the Vikings, for Christ's
everybody.
sake. Brady's an excellent start as per usual. Mike Gillislee, I'm going to give him a C+. He needs goal line opportunity to produce anything worthwhile for your fantasy lineup. He's tough to bench, I'll grant you that, but this is an actually pretty tough matchup on paper for Patriots runners in general. James White, though, I'll give a B- to, a slightly better grade than Mike Gillislee. Flex option in PPR leagues. White should get back on track in this matchup with a banged-up Bucs linebacking core. Last week was one of those weird Patriot anomalies in which a guy like Deion Lewis steps in and randomly and produces. Who saw that coming? Absolutely nobody.
Yeah, that's why I intentionally stayed away from the backfield so I don't have to make these decisions and get screwed.
Fortunately, we don't have to talk about Rex Burkhead because he's out of the lineup again here in Week 5 with injury. And Deion Lewis, I'm not even going to bother giving a grade to because I think James White's the better PPR option. Brandon Cooks, B+. Simply put, the Bucs have no answer for this guy. Now, it should be noted, Brian, Cooks never scored on them as a member of the Saints in 5 prior matchups dating back to 2012. No touchdowns for Brandon Cooks against better Bucs defenses, of course. That's the big difference here. Bucs secondary is not looking very sharp this year, and Brandon Cooks has all the tools necessary to get this done. So does Chris Hogan, for that matter. B+. Guy's money in the bank. You know, Hogan is one of Brady's most trusted assets in the passing game. He's great for your lineup. Anybody who's got Brady's trust like that, Brady throws to him all over the field. It doesn't have to be one specific part of the field. Hogan's always there. Danny Amendola, I'm giving a C+ too. If you need a guy, you could do worse than Brady's slot guy. Admittedly, it's kind of a hunch play, but as long as he's healthy, he will see a handful of targets, no doubt about that. Rob Gronkowski, listen, I'm giving him an A grade. I'm not buying the new questionable tag the team placed on him yesterday, a supposed thigh injury. Probably a Charlie horse or something, if nothing else. I mean,
snapping towels in the showers.
There is no more probable tag, so I guess if they have to give him a tag at all, it's got to be questionable.
Yeah, question. We talked about this last year early on when they made that change, because questionable goes from 75% chance to play down to 25% chance to play. So it covers this large swath of probability.
For the Bucs, Jameis Winston an A grade, expecting big things this week against the league's leakiest pass defense, allowing the most passing yards to opposing quarterbacks and tied for the most passing scores with 11 through 4 games. Jacquizz Rodgers is the B grade here. I'm not buying that muscle hamster steps right in, as I alluded to earlier. A 4-game suspension on a short week, and I can't believe he's going to do anything really worthwhile here. So Rodgers, on the other hand, gets one of only 3 defenses allowing over 5 yards per carry, nearly 133 rushing yards per game on the season, not to mention how terrible they are at stopping the pass, and Rodgers can catch the ball. Doug Martin, I'm just going to leave him on the bench this week. He may get some work, but he needs some time to get up to game speed. I'm sitting him until he gets at least 1 full week of practice under his belt. That's the deal. Mike Evans, an A grade, should have a big game here considering the juicy matchup. But, wouldn't it be so Belichick if the Patriots schemed to take Evans away and actually succeeded? It is what they do, after all.
I guess so.
I mean, they could bracket coverage the guy.
Why not? I mean, make Jameis Winston beat us.
The good news about bracket coverage or double teams or any of that, Deshaun Jackson should
Deshaun
have
Jackson real happy.
Really big day. I'm giving him a B+ here because I believe Evans does see some double teams. Jackson is an excellent play here, looking at a lot of one-on-one coverages, which he can win pretty handily with his speed. Adam Humphries, I'm going to give him a C+. Barely anybody else name-dropping him, but why? 6 grabs in each of his last 2 games, 17 targets total, and the Patriots give up a ton of production to slot receivers, Brian. You want a dark horse this week, it's the Bucs version of Danny Amendola. That's Adam Humphries. And Cameron Brate, I'm giving him a B grade. New England can't stop any aspect of an opponent's passing game, including tight ends. And though we like O.J. Howard long-term, Brate is the guy I'm starting in a plus matchup against the Patriots defense, giving up 3 touchdowns to the position so far here in 2017.
That was a whole lot of motivation out of you for Thursday night.
Right.
So here's mine. Jets at the Browns.
Oh, boy, how long is this going to take?
Thanks. Quarterback Josh McCown, I'm going to give him a B. Look, somehow he gets points here and they're not quite sure, but they have the 26 pass attacks, so the points are sporadic and averaging less than 200 points a game. But it's the Browns. And, if the Jets are trying to tank the season, 2-2 is not the way to do it.
No, way to go, guys.
Yeah, whoops. So Bilal Powell, you know what? I'm going to give him a B-. I'm not all in on Powell. I'm not going bonkers like I should be. If you look at the season as a whole, he had that busted play yesterday for 75 yards where he dove over, nobody touched him, and he got up and ran.
Yeah, totally fluky.
So you throw that one out the door, he had another day of 75 yards. I'm not super happy about it, but nobody else there. With Forte being a little squiggly and hurt, it's all his for him to go now. So
Elijah McGuire, I mean, he's a guy in the past I've sort of been like, who's this freaking guy?
But that's the thing. If they rotate in McGuire as in a Forte workload, if I was Bilal Powell, I'd just be like, fine, I'm done.
Yeah.
What's the point?
Are we trying to win or not?
Well, we're terrible. We can't even suck at sucking.
I know, right?
So Robbie Anderson, I'm going to go ahead and throw him on the bench. He's not worth any time here. I'd rather play a number 3 wide receiver on another team, like an Adam Humphries. Wide receiver Jermaine Kearse, he's going to get a B+. He is getting action. He has 180 yards and 2 touchdowns. Nothing crazy, but he's the only play for me on the Jets roster is Jermaine Kearse because somebody's got to get the passing yards, right?
I don't know. Stay tuned for the bargain bin. I might have a different answer for you.
Are you picking Austin Seferian Jenkins?
You'll have to keep listening to find out.
Oh, that's cute. On the Browns side of the ball, Deshaun Kaiser, bench, 9 turnovers, 5 total touchdowns. It may not be all him, but it's clearly not a team you want to mess with, especially the quarterback. So I was surprised to see Kaiser not there. I was thinking he was going to be the hotter play over Watson, but it wasn't. He just looks scared. He looks like a deer in the headlights. He's not up to speed.
He also got the dreaded vote of confidence from his head coach this week. When a coach like Hugh Jackson comes out in support of his rookie quarterback who's been struggling mightily, it makes me think somebody like Kevin Hogan waiting in the wings might end up under center sooner than later.
Let's head over to the Crow. Has not eclipsed 50 yards yet in a single game.
So gross.
That's terrible. Even though the Jets give up a ton, I'm not rolling the dice here. I will, however, give my little vote of confidence to Duke Johnson.
I like that, especially in PPR. He's huge.
Stay tuned for the bargain bin.
I like it.
Wide receiver, who's even playing wide receiver? Rashard Higgins and Kenny Britt.
Yeah.
Sounds great. Leave him on the bench.
Who?
Yeah, we're done. That's it. Thanks for the matchup, Andy. Appreciate it.
Boy, that was about as bad as it gets right there. I don't know. Do I have a Miami or a Baltimore matchup coming up maybe? We got to balance this out. All right, I suppose there's going to be some conversation here between Brian and I about this next matchup. Carolina at Detroit. We'll start with the Panthers. Cam Newton, I'm giving a B- to. In case you were all wondering, no, I'm not back on the bandwagon. Newton did what he did in week 4, against the league's most generous defense, the Patriots. The week before that, week 3, he was dreadful against the league's 30th pass defense, the Saints. The Lions are better than both, but not by much. They're actually middle of the pack in yards allowed, but have given up 7 passing scores while intercepting just 1 enemy pass. They're also middle of the road against the run, where Cam can earn you some additional fantasy points, but I'm not counting on it on the road. Christian McCaffrey is a B- for me. A Swiss Army knife-like weapon like McCaffrey should be in line for equal parts running and receiving work on Sunday. Has yet to show any touchdown upside, but that'll come eventually. Not counting on it being this week, however, against a Detroit defense that has given up only 1 rushing score on the year. Now, if Gerard Davis returns for Detroit, which I'm expecting, I'm actually scaling CMC back a bit to a C+, because Gerard Davis, he's the man. Brian can tell you.
He's a freaking animal. As a rookie, he's calling all the plays.
I love that guy.
That's crazy.
He's my new favorite linebacker in the league, I think. Jonathan Stewart, I'm giving a C grade too. If you assume Davis returns this week, I don't see a path to fantasy success for J. Stu, aside from any opportunities he may get if the Panthers get inside the 5. And, even then, Cam is a potential vulture, even with the threat of a concussion as he suffered last year, and the coaches obviously are scaling back his running opportunities. But if he sees an opening, he's going to take it. He can dive from the 7-yard line and still get to the goal line. As far as the receiving core goes, Kelvin Benjamin, I'm giving a B- too. He looked good at nicking the Patriots for 104 yards in last week's win in Foxborough. Only 4 targets, though, which surprised me a bit. I think Cam will need to take to the air more often to keep pace with the Lions, so Kelvin's workload should go up, and he is still a little bit nicked up. So,
did you know Darius Slay has not allowed a touchdown yet? And he has had Odell Beckham Jr., Larry Fitzgerald, and Julio Jones.
Have we settled on a nickname yet? Because I think he's
big
worthy.
Play Slay.
I think a sleigh ride or like Slayer or something like that should be incorporated somehow.
You know what? Let's hit him up. Let's hit him up on Twitter. He's active on Twitter.
Is he? You want to ask him?
Yeah,
what do you think of
super.
this? Should this be your nickname on the show?
Yeah, I mean, it's Big Play Slay, but
if you're going to @ a player, by the way, do it in a complimentary way. Don't do it like a douche like some of these people are.
Oh, I am with Ebron, just so you know.
Yeah.
I am terrible with Ebron.
You all over him?
I harass him. He's never responded to me yet, though.
Devin Funchess, a B- since Greg Olson's injury. No question Funchess has stepped up, taken on a bigger role. A safe floor, scoring upside, great flex option, wide receiver 2 if you're thin at the position. For the Lions, Matthew Stafford, I'm giving a B+ to. The Panthers rank right in the middle against the pass through 4 games. I could see him racking up 250 to 300 yards, a couple of scores in this one. He threw 5 touchdowns the last time Carolina visited Detroit back in 2011, by the way. Amir Abdullah is a B grade. Flashed a bit in the Lions' Week 4 win at Minnesota, running for nearly 100 yards against one of the league's better rush defenses. This week, he gets a banged-up and below-average unit at home, so I kind of like Amir this week. Theo Riddick, I'm just going to leave on the bench, though, until I see him trend in a positive direction.
Didn't we have a bet where you said Riddick was going to outscore?
We had an almost bet. We didn't quite settle because you wanted it to be a standard league, and I said no.
Crushed you.
Golden Tate, a B grade, another big volume game expected for the Lions' most reliable pass catcher, who surprisingly only saw 5 total targets last week in Minnesota. This is a very solid matchup for Tate, the vast majority of Lions receivers as well. Marvin Jones, I give a B- too. Both Michael Thomas and Ted Ginn scored on this Panthers secondary back in week 2. Chris Hogan and Danny Amendola last week. I think more than one receiver can succeed. Tate and Jones are the two most likely candidates for the Lions. Eric Ebron, you mentioned I'm leaving him on the bench. Seeing as the Lions are giving Darren Fells nearly as many opportunities as Ebron in the passing game, he's probably just best left on the bench. Carolina are one of the league's best against opposing tight ends. That does it for our first set of matchups. Man, we're just getting started. Week 5 of the NFL. Brian and I back with more matchups. Hopefully, Brian has more exciting ones to tell you about in the next segment. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. You are listening to the 515 Fantasy Football Show, and we thank you for that. I'm Andy Hall. That's Brian Eikenberry. You can hear us each and every Thursday on 1350 AM and 102.1 FM, ESPN Radio, Des Moines, Iowa. We're also available digitally, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, ESPNDesMoines.com is our home on the net. Brian, more matchups.
Yeah, super awesome here again. So now I have 2 sucky ones. That's a streak. San Francisco at Indianapolis.
Not nearly as bad as your first one.
No. Yeah, I do actually have some grades on this one.
Ha.
So, quarterback Brian Hoyer, I'm going to give him a B. The Colts defense is terrible and gives up nearly 300 yards per game, which is great news for Hoyer, who isn't even averaging 200 yards per game. So, there's an upside. Carlos Hyde, I'm going to give a B+. I think Hyde gets 25 carries and has a monster day. A little hip issue, but he's good to go. He needs at least 15 carries to get it going, and I think the Colts are just going to let him run heyday. So I think Carlos Hyde is the must-start out of this matchup. Wide receiver Pierre Garçon's a C, 285 yards total, which isn't great. The zero TDs are what kill it. I think he gets on the board this week. It's the Colts. How can you not? I mean, if you're an owner here of Garçon, you've been on the fence to start him. You got to start him this week, and if it's nothing, just never do it again.
Yeah, I think Hoyer feeds him this week, so he's probably better than a C for me. But, yeah, I would start him.
Yep, and then you've got Marquise Goodwin. I'm going to leave him on the bench. Look, second place on the receiving list here with 127 yards in 4 games. No chance, and holy crap, I am starting him.
Yeah.
Anyway, shape or form.
No.
On the Colts side of the ball, Jacoby Brissett, B+.
Yeah, I like him a lot.
I don't think Luck's there yet. We know that. So I think Brissett's getting a B+. He looked good at times, and he also then kind of looked like a rookie at times. The Niners are a subpar defense, so anticipate some action from Brissett. I liked what I've seen. When he was making plays, he was making plays. And then when he was, it looked pretty bad.
And that Niners defense is so Jekyll and Hyde. You never know what you're going to get week to week, but when they're bad, they're really bad.
Yeah, well, the reason I like San Francisco's defense towards sucking is because it's not a divisional game. San Francisco always plays tough in the division, and when they go somewhere else, they're terrible. Frank Gore's going to get a B. Hopefully, Gore gets 20 carries. He's on the low end of 3.1 yards per carry, but Coach said he gets 15 to 17 touches per game. I typically expect about 80 combined yards. That's key there, combined yards from Gore. And it's typically what you're going to get. The sooner Luck gets back in the roster, the better Gore will become. T.Y. Hilton, he's going to get an A. T.Y. is average stat-wise right now. The game last week showed Hilton fighting and scrapping. He has 289 yards through 4 games. The problem isn't target share because he's actually doing it. It's just the actual number of passes thrown, period. So target share is up, but the number of targets is terrible. And then you've got Aiken and Moncrief. Aiken's non-existent. Moncrief, B, decent stat lines, getting more trust from Brissett, so he gets a touchdown from time to time.
There you go. Tennessee at Miami. Here's my first stinker of the day. Begin with the Titans. I don't know who it's going to be at quarterback. I don't think it'll be Marcus Mariota, so I'm planning on Matt Castle, and of course I'm leaving him on the bench. DeMarco Murray, a B-. Not in love with the Titans' running game in this matchup, as I think the Dolphins are wise enough to stack the box and make Castle try to beat them with his arm. I just had this visual of Matt Castle tearing his arm off and trying to beat the Dolphins with his arm. Anyway, Derrick Henry, a C+. That one went right over Brian's head.
Yeah, I was kind of caught me there drinking water.
Murray's obviously still the guy in this offense. Henry comes in and spells him from time to time, but until this flips because of injury or some other weird reason, Derrick Henry still takes a back seat. Rashard Matthews, a B grade, scored in his lone head-to-head against Miami in October of last year, but didn't do much else. Will likely be Castle's primary wide receiver target on most routes. Eric Decker, he's downright droppable at this point, Brian. You know, if you can't do it in this matchup, I don't think you need him on your roster anymore. I'll give him a C+.
Agreed.
Out of pity. I mean, if there ever was a game, we'll either see Decker show up or perhaps disappear forever. I guess it's this one. He's had some monster games against Miami in his career, scoring touchdowns in his last 3, dating back to 2014. That's of note. Delaney Walker, a B+, probably Tennessee's best bet to produce something tangible on Sunday in terms of the passing game. On the Dolphins side, Jay Cutler, a B-. The Titans have been flat out bad against the pass through 4 games. Ironically, Cutler's been just as bad as a passer through 4 games. I'm buying the positive matchup, but not necessarily willing to take the risk here. Power to you if you are. Jay Ajayi, a B grade. The Titans are giving up less than 4 yards per carry. Ajayi's coming off back-to-back disappointing outings. But honestly, you can't sit him unless you have 2 studs you can plug in, and if and when Ajayi does have a solid outing, you should probably trade him immediately. Devontae Parker, a B+. I may hate Cutler, but I actually kind of love Parker this week against a Titans defense that has allowed the 4th most passing yards and tied for the most touchdowns allowed through the air at 11. A good bet Parker gets at least 1 this week. Jarvis Landry, a B-. As usual, I like him much better in PPR leagues. In standard, he doesn't offer much more than some yardage usually. Good matchup for some volume, but unless you're given points for receptions, he's no better than a flex play with little touchdown upside. Julius Thomas, a B-. He's scored in every single one of his 4 head-to-head matchups against Tennessee dating back to 2013. Been an extremely disappointing start to his 2017 in Miami. He may not give you a ton of catches and yards, but he appears to be a decent dart throw for scoring a touchdown here.
All right, let's make it a 3-peat here. Buffalo at Cincinnati.
Oh, God.
Quarterback Tyrod Taylor on the bench, regardless of any matchup. If you are the quarterback of the 32nd ranked passing game with 171 yards per game, you don't get on a roster, period. You don't get grades. Running back LaShawn McCoy, I'm going to give him in the A here, benefit of the doubt. The touchdown-less Shady will get his this week. He has decent yardage when combined with passing, and Cincinnati gives up over 100 a week on the ground. He is the number 1 option, and he is also number 1 on the team in receptions.
Except for when they get down inside the 5, in which case big fat Mike Tolbert comes in.
Yeah,
doesn't
terrible.
that just kill you as Shady?
Terrible.
Man.
Jordan Matthews, he's out. Zay Jones, bench. Charles Clay. I wanted to start him, but look, I got him on the bench. He's leading the team. Yeah.
Wow.
Look, there's nobody else to cover. So guess who's going to get double teamed?
I know. He just sees so much volume, though.
Oh, he does. He is leading the team in receiving yards and touchdowns. There's no reason to not start Clay as the only pass catcher, and he has the 2nd highest fantasy points on the team. But I just think, okay,
if they're going to focus all their efforts on him because there's nobody else.
Nobody else.
Jordan Matthews is out, right? So it's Zay Jones.
And I don't even know.
And some other people.
Yeah. Somebody else who made the cut.
Wow.
So if you're going to focus, to me, this is like the Gronk thing. We're going to double up Gronk.
Yeah. And imagine that. Do you think Charles Clay would have ever imagined in his wildest dreams that a defense would dedicate that kind of attention to him?
You would think so. I think so. I think that's what's going to happen. So, yeah, the matchup's great, but I think it's a risk start from that kind of the point of view.
Sure.
Quarterback Andy Dalton, he's going to get a B. The Bills have a middle-of-the-road defense, but Gio is warming up in the passing game, and things seem to be getting a little bit better. If you take out the first 2 games of Dalton's individual stats that are terrible, he's actually coming around.
Thank you, Bill Lazor.
So let's look at the bright side here. I'm going to give Dalton a B. Then you got the running back situation, or Gio and Mixon. Hill's kind of out of the picture for me, but he always comes in at like the worst time. And then you got Gio, who you think Mixon's going to get it. And then Gio's running all over the place. And you're like, come on. I don't know who to start. I don't know what to do, but they're both going to get B's. Gio is a 2nd leading receiver. So if you're a PPR, I'd start Gio every single week. Second leading receiver, and is tied for the team high with 2 touchdowns. Great value PPR league. Jeremy Hill has nearly vanished. And Mixon, you just don't know. If Gio's hot, they clearly go with a hot hand, and Gio always gets the first crack at the bat. Period.
Seems like it, doesn't it?
AJ Green, he's going to get a B- here. 30% of the targets coming on, but he's going to draw double coverage without Tyler Eifert and all that action going on.
I know. Listen, you said that Buffalo was middle of the road at the top of the matchup. I disagree. In pass defense, they're elite. They have not allowed a passing score yet.
Scores, but they give up yards.
Maybe.
They give up yards.
But they're not giving up scores.
They may not be giving up scores.
So maybe that'll change with A.J. Green this week. We'll see.
Tyler Boyd, bench. Outside of Green and Gio and Mixon, for all of your offensive production. There isn't a startable option at a skill position. For me, as everybody else in the receiving game is under 10% of the targets.
Unless they forget about Tyler Kroft, who actually showed some prowess in the red zone last week and scored a touchdown.
But are you going to start him?
I wouldn't.
Yeah, so there's no point.
I have better dart throw in my bargain bin.
Yeah, I have way better dart throws in the dark.
Right. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Hopefully we have more interesting matchups with more fantasy relevant players than the ones.
If this is your first show, just stick around. It'll get better, I promise.
It has to, because we've already gotten through some of the worst matchups of the week. There are some stinkers on the docket, but we will get better. We promise you. More matchups coming your way next. This is 515 Fantasy Football. More matchups for Week 5 of NFL action. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM and 102.1 FM, ESPN Des Moines, Iowa. Andy Hall and Brian Eikenberry. I got the Chargers and the Giants coming up here next for you. Look at the Chargers. Phillip Rivers, a B grade. The Giants have thus far been pretty mediocre against the pass. Of course, they've been missing Janoris Jenkins a couple of those games, which cannot be understated. With his return, the Chargers' passing game will need to run through Tyrell Williams, the team's 2 tight ends, and Melvin Gordon, pretty much. That is assuming Rivers isn't being knocked around all day by the Giants' pass rush or jet-lagged from a long cross-country flight. That is a factor.
Fantastic.
Melvin Gordon, an A grade. Part of the reason the Giants have held up as well as they have in the secondary without Jenkins is that opposing offenses have found great success in running the ball. The Giants have given up the 5th most rushing yards in the league, nearly 143 yards per game. In fact, they've only allowed 2 rushing scores on the year, but I think Gordon is good enough to get it done at least once in this game. Tyrell Williams, I mentioned, I give a B grade too. Likely avoids Jenkins, which bodes well for a possession guy like Williams, who showed up in a big way against the Eagles in Week 4. Could have a similar level of success against the Giants. Keenan Allen, a B-. Jenkins held Dez Bryant to 2 catches for 43 yards in Week 1. Lions receivers to virtually nothing in Week 2. Typically, we love Keenan Allen, but this week I'm severely tempering my expectations for him against one of the league's best cover corners. Antonio Gates, a C+. One position I am bullish on for the Chargers passing core is the pass-catching core, I should say, is the tight end position. The Giants have given up at least 1 tight end touchdown in every single game this season. So who gets it this time, Gates or Henry? My money's on Henry. He's younger, quicker, more elusive. Overall, a better
Records
bet.
in the books.
So Hunter Henry gets a B+. You're good point there. Antonio Gates might just fade away or ride off into the sunset. Over to the Giants side, Eli Manning, a B+. I feel like this one will be one of Eli's good weeks when he's able to pile up the passing yards, get a couple scores, limit the turnovers. LA's secondary is banged up, and like Rivers on the other side, if Manning can avoid getting hit by a pretty solid pass rush, he and his receivers should be able to move the ball with relatively ease. Wayne Gallman, I mentioned earlier in the show, giving him a B grade this week. I have many reasons to believe he is going to be the primary ball carrier for the Giants this week, and that he will have a very productive fantasy day. We'll talk about him more later in the show. Odell Beckham is an A grade, elite. You're starting him. Brandon Marshall is C+. He acknowledged that he needs to play better. Yeah, you
cool,
think, Brandon?
Thanks, bud.
You think? Thing is, he's still capable. He needs volume and better opportunities in the red zone. Can he get that this week? I think he can. Feel free to consider him in your flex spot. Sterling Shepard, also flex-worthy. Volatility in his scoring potential, the only question mark. He's seeing a decent amount of targets. The Giants throw more than anyone else in the league, so he is a decent dart throw. Give him a C+. Also a C+ for Evan Ingram. Chargers are very good against opposing tight ends. Haven't allowed a tight end touchdown yet this season, and only allowed 4 all year in 2016. But Ingram is quietly being targeted a lot in this offense, if you haven't noticed. In fact, he's currently tied for second in the league among tight ends with Gronk, just behind targets leader Zach Ertz.
Am I up now?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. Jacksonville at Pittsburgh. Quarterback Blake Bortles, I'm going to leave him on the bench. The thing that worries me is he is completing 54% of his passes, and that is just terrible. He has 7 touchdowns and only 3 picks, though. So you got to focus on the bright side. Well, Pittsburgh passing game, second in the league.
Oh, their pass defense, yes.
Yeah, their pass defense is second in the league. So, no, that was the bright side. The bright side is Leonard Fournette.
Very much so.
He is getting an A. Fournette is the start of the week here for the Jaguars. 3 touchdowns and only has 3.5 yards per carry, but he's going to run a lot. Expect 25 carries against Pittsburgh's run defense that allows over 110 yards per game.
And the big bonus for Fournette this year, and going back to last week's show, why I think he can crack like that elite level running back list this year, top 5 even, is the fact that he's actually catching passes.
Yeah, I love the guy right now.
Didn't count on that going into the season.
Heading into the wide receiver category, let's leave them all on the bench. Allen Robinson, Marquise Lee. Look.
Allen Robinson, jeez.
Oh, sorry, Alan Hearns. Sorry, reflexes.
I know, right?
Whoopsies. I even have it written as Hearns, and I just cruised right on over that.
I know. I figured that's what happened.
It's a bench-tastic day in my matchup, so let's be honest. When the QB is only completing 50% of his passes and no wide receiver has over 200 yards,
oh my God,
do you really want to start one?
Wow.
So no, when you look at the stats of actually what's happening, there's no chance in freaking no way, not happening.
No way in green hell.
Yeah. You want to talk about Mercedes Lewis because he had 3 touchdowns? Well, that's all been it. That's it. That's all he's ever done. So there's no way we're starting that.
Told you not to chase that box score.
On to Pittsburgh side of the ball. Quarterback Big Ben, I'm going to give him a B. Big Ben at home, that's a good thing typically. But the bad thing is the Jags have the number 1 pass defense in the league.
They're
so you
elite.
have the number 1 and number 2 pass defense in the league going up against each other at Pittsburgh. So it's going to be a ground game, and I'm nervous as a Brown owner, especially when Ben only has 6 touchdowns right now through 4 games. Le'Veon Bell, on the other hand, he's going to get an A+.
Yeah.
My first A+ of the year, probably my only one. This is his big game. This is his 200-yard game. The Jags are giving up 165 yards per game on the ground. That is stupid.
For as good as they are in pass defense, they are equally terrible at stopping the run.
It's disgusting.
Yep.
So you should have Le'Veon running the ball 20 times, just going bananas. He's going to be catching passes. I mean, it is going to be a Le'Veon Bell show.
All day long, buddy.
Antonio Brown, B-. Some rumblings of Antonio's discontent, and honestly, I don't blame him. Passing is moderate at best this year for the Steelers, and he's the best wide receiver in the league, so throw him the ball. The other side of the thing is he does get 32% of the targets and has 5 plays over 20 yards. But somewhere, look, Big Ben is just not getting it going.
A.J. Bouye, one of the league's greatest cover corner. I mean, this guy is incredible. He was with Houston, if you remember.
Yep.
They traded him over to Jacksonville. When I heard that A.J. Bouye was going to Jacksonville, I said that defense is going to be much improved this year.
The one thing I will say is Antonio Brown can play from anywhere.
I agree.
So that's what Coach Tomlin will move him around. So you'll see Antonio in the slot. You'll see him outside. You'll see him top of formation, bottom formation. Going to be everywhere. Martavis Bryant, B-. Always a deep threat here. Has a higher yards per catch average than Antonio does, but half the targets. Only 10 receptions, so be wary. Don't freak out about Juju Schuster either. Nothing to bank on. Everybody sell down.
Arizona at Philadelphia. Start with the Cardinals. Carson Palmer, a B+. Philadelphia has given up the second most passing yards in the league through 4 games, an average of 285 yards per game through the air. And considering the state of Arizona's running game, non-existent, their path to victory here on the road is via the air. Palmer has averaged over 300 passing yards per game over his last 3 head-to-head matchups with the Eagles and threw for a total of 6 touchdowns over that span. Andre Ellington is a C+. Listen, this guy needs to be rostered, especially in PPR formats. Opposing running backs have only attempted 66 rushes against these Eagles on the young season. Philly ranks 4th in yards allowed, about only 70 per game, and have given up only 3 rushing scores. Ellington's value comes primarily in the short passing game where he should be able to contribute some. No other Arizona backs are worth looking at here, in my opinion. Larry Fitzgerald, A grade. Over 300 receiving yards are up for grabs week to week on average against these Eagles. Fitzgerald has been on fire as of late. I see no reason the streak can't continue this week. The last time he faced Philly was in 2015, Brian. Only 3 catches for 43 yards. But before that, he went 7 for 160 and a touchdown, 5 for 72 and a touchdown, 9 for 114 and a touchdown, 7 for 146 and a touchdown, 9 for 152 and a touchdown, 5 for 65, 2 touchdowns, and 5 for 93 and a touchdown. That's an easy A for me. Jaron Brown is a B+. 12, 6, 11, and 9 targets in his first 4 games. The high water mark, by the way, achieved just last week with John Brown back in the lineup. It's obvious that if anyone's field time is in peril with the return of John Brown, it's J.J. Nelson, not Jaron Brown. Possession guy with some touchdown upside absolutely deserves a spot in your lineup. John Brown, a C grade. He's done nothing in 2 previous meetings with these Eagles, and aside from connecting on a lawn ball with Palmer, doesn't seem to have much fantasy upside. Over to the Eagles, Carson Wentz, a B grade. He's a volume play, considering I don't see his running game succeeding much here. Wentz has attempted 39, 41, 31, and 31 passes in his first 4 games this season. You can expect a similar workload against the Cardinals, who, for what it's worth, are 13th against the pass. Wendell Smallwood, he hasn't been practicing this week, which makes me a little nervous. If he does go, I'll give him a C+. The Cardinals rank 10th in terms of rushing yards allowed through 4 games, only 3.2 yards per carry. Smallwood isn't going to be a big volume guy anyway with LeGarrette Blount still around, so if you're banking on a score from him, it's certainly no guarantee. It's a big risk. LeGarrette Blount, I'll give a C grade too. Takes a goal line opportunity to get this guy going at all, so I don't know if he gets the kind of workload requisite of a spot in your starting lineup. Alshon Jeffrey, a B-. Pierre Garçon, 4 receptions, 36 yards last week against Patrick Peterson. Des Bryant only had 2 receptions for 12 yards, did score a touchdown. Dante Moncrief, 2 receptions, 18 yards. Marvin Jones, 2 receptions, 37 yards, did score a touchdown. Jeffrey's closer to Bryant than any of the other guys on this list, but that's not much of a vote of confidence. I'm tempering expectations, thinking Peterson shadows him this week. Nelson Aguilar, a C+. Not seeing a ton of targets, but producing fairly well through 4 games. He's a dart throw at best in this matchup. And Zach Ertz, he's always in your lineup. I'm giving him a B grade, though. The Cardinals have been elite against tight ends on the season thus far. Ertz has a very safe floor, though, so you're putting him in your lineup, of course. Hey, everybody's favorite segment is coming next. That's the pop quiz, and it's coming up in minutes on 515 Fantasy Football. Hour number 2 of the 515 Fantasy Football Show, Week 5 edition here in 2017. Andy Hall and Brian Eikenberry here with you. Again, a reminder that in addition to being on the radio each and every Thursday on 1350 AM and 102.1 FM Des Moines, Iowa, ESPN Radio, we're also available digitally. So if you miss any part of the show, you can always go back and listen at your leisure. We are available on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, and online at espndesmoines.com. 3 of Fantasy's most difficult questions going to be fired at Brian without any prior knowledge. That is our pop quiz. And I've got 3 doozies for you here today, Brian.
Okay, ready. Smoke 'em if you got 'em.
I like it. Question number 1. Rookie quarterback Mitch Trubisky will be the Bears' starting quarterback this week against Minnesota and presumably going forward. You're a Jordan Howard owner. Should your level of panic be A, none, B, some, or C, complete panic?
Knee-jerk is complete panic, but then I think about Glennon. So I would say some, just because you're probably going to get an extra man in the box on some plays. But Glennon got benched, so it's not like Glennon was lighting it up and they're like, well, we're just going to bring in this guy. So Glennon was never a threat anyways. So I'd be more excited if they would have signed a receiver somewhere, and then you'd have something to cheer about.
You pretty much nailed this one. Correct answer is B. With a completely depleted receiving core and unproven rookie under center, Howard will likely see 8- and 9-man boxes, forcing Trubisky to try to beat defenses with his arm. To some extent, we saw this last season, and it didn't hurt Howard that much, but at least in 2016, the Bears had a healthy Cameron Meredith anchoring the receivers the entire season. This year, not so much. Now, he has succeeded in spots despite a god-awful Mike Glennon running the offense, so there is reason that he can succeed, but you should panic some now that the Bears are changing direction, and we mentioned this earlier in the show. Probably not a great week for that, taking on the Vikings. Speaking of Minnesota, question number 2. Will Stephon Diggs finish the season as a wide receiver 1?
I will go with no. Well, thinking like
I know, it's not an easy question.
I'll say no. I mean, that's a pretty open and straightforward question. I will say no.
It's not open-ended at all.
Well, as I said, it's like open, but it's a straightforward question.
Right, it is.
Yes or no? No.
You don't want to give me any reasons, though? I mean,
well, look.
You know where he's at right now, right?
No.
Number 1.
I don't even care.
Number 1. All across the board, every single category.
And it's not
Diggs.
because he's doing so great. It's because everyone else is doing so bad right now. I mean, that's how I look at this kind of a situation. Everyone else is doing so bad. There's so much bad football being played right now in the NFL, and it sucks. So, no.
Okay. Considering his target share, over 24% in an offense that is now without Dalvin Cook and should be throwing more, Not to mention, he is at present a quarter of the way through the fantasy season, the number 1 wide receiver in half PPR leagues, leading the number 2 wide receiver, Antonio Brown, by 16 fantasy points. He certainly could be, assuming good health the rest of the way. However, we simply don't know who will be throwing him the ball week to week going forward. Will Case Keenum remain the Vikings starting quarterback? Will Sam Bradford ever return from his bone bruise? And what about Teddy Bridgewater? There are reports that he may be back on the field and eligible for game action in the next few weeks, actually. Because of the uncertainty at the quarterback position in Minnesota, I think Diggs finishes 2017 just outside the top 12. But it's going to be close. I think he could finish as fantasy's number 13 wide receiver, honestly.
I wouldn't knock him down that far. I'll put him in between 7 and 10.
Well, that would make him a wide receiver 1 then.
I thought you said top 5.
No, wide receiver 1, which is 1 to 12.
Well, no, I know what that is. I thought you said top 5.
No,
so
I
may
did
not
not.
have been
So
completely
you think
paying
he is
attention.
going to be a wide receiver 1?
No, I'll stick with no.
You were about to
I was
kind of
half not paying attention to your question. Because
Jeez,
once you heard
Brian.
the Vikings, I'm like, whatever. I'm going to be
Brian,
wrong.
you were asleep at the
2
wheel
for
today.
2, baby.
Yeah, you were right on that one, however. All right, question number 3. After 4 weeks, the number 28 wide receiver in half PPR leagues is Julio Jones, and he's already nicked up.
Yep.
Is it time to quit considering Julio Jones among fantasy's most elite pass catchers, Brian?
I don't think it's time to call it off on Julio. This year, maybe. Hip flexor, bad injury. Bad injury to have. Super tender in there. I think it's more time to talk about Matt Ryan. This team has never healed from their Super Bowl loss. Never healed. And that's the bigger problem.
I don't know. Could it just be tough matchups early on in the season? Chicago's not an easy pass defense.
They're
Detroit,
not,
we've talked about the Lions.
but they're just not playing great. They are not playing good offense right now, and that's their big problem.
Way to turn this question into something I did not ask about, Brian, but you did answer. To your credit, you said no, you're not ready to – it's not time to quit considering him among fantasy's most elite pass catchers. I say –
But I did say this year, yes.
Okay, so you went ahead and made it a different question.
Because, well, you said fantasy football wide receivers. That's like for a large chunk of time. For this year, I would because that hip flexor
yeah,
scares
but that's
me.
because of an injury. I'm talking about other things too, though. I say it is time.
3 for 3, baby.
No, I say it is time to quit considering Julio Jones among fantasy's most elite pass catchers. It's funny. I got a lot of crap from randos on Twitter for ranking him outside of my top 5 at the wide receiver position going into 2017. My reasoning? Lack of touchdown consistency, especially in the red zone, where the Falcons simply do not target him. In 14 games last year, a total of only 10 red zone targets in 14 games. So far, through 4 games, he's seen 2 red zone targets. Sure, Julio Jones is one of the most physically gifted wideouts of this generation. Sure, his quarterback, Matt Ryan, is more than capable of making Julio a no-brainer top 2 or 3 guy each and every season in that offense. And sure, he's got a ceiling that maybe 1 or 2 NFL wide receivers can boast of. But multiple health concerns, plus in the past 5 healthy seasons, he's only ranked top 3 one time. Granted, he was a top 10 finish at the wide receiver position in all but his rookie season. He finished number 17 that year. We see him ranked top 3 every single preseason despite all these things, and it's time to stop.
I agree.
That is what I think. And going into next season, I will not have him in my top 3.
I am curious when his contract is up.
I can look it up if you can kill some time.
Okay. So let me tell you a little story.
I would love to hear your story.
I don't really have one. I was just kind of making stuff up. So let me just sample into the what'd you call it? The fun thing we do. The fun talking time.
Well, that would be the flea flicker.
The flea flicker, yep.
Why don't we give us a little primer?
Yeah. My kid turned 5 and I took away his birthday stuff because he was being a little turd burger. I ruined his birthday at daycare. I stuck to punishment. I stuck to the guns. He was going to take a piñata to daycare. He was going to have fun, but he was being a total turd for 2 days, despite multiple threats, and he even was repeating what his punishment was going to be. So I yanked it all, and he was devastated.
Oh.
Lesson learned, 2 days straight, he's been an angel.
All right, so Julio Jones signed a 5-year, $71+ million contract. He has a potential out in 2018.
Next year.
So there you have it.
Do they move on from Julio Jones?
I mean, I don't think they do. Because, look, I mean, if this hip flexor thing was a bigger issue and we were talking about, Julio Jones won't play this week, he's not going to play this week. They're already out Mohamed Sanu. Who else do they have there?
Oh,
Taylor Gabriel.
Yeah.
Justin Hardy.
Hooper was looking like a champ this week if they would have had to play.
I mean, I'm just saying, if they walk away from Julio Jones, they would either have to hit on a rookie pick at wide receiver and hope that he pans out like early, or find somebody in free agency. But who's that going to be? I mean, they can't replace a Julio Jones in that offense and still be a successful team.
Lions did.
Getting rid of Megatron retiring, and then they signed Golden Tate, who's a very good possession guy.
Well, he was there.
Marvin Jones.
He was there before.
It's tough to say.
I don't know.
The Lions are a great example, actually, Brian, of what the Falcons could do in life after Julio.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really smart thing you just said, Brian. I'm giving you a lot of credit
3
here.
for 3 on the pop quiz. Talking good stuff.
You kind of almost talked yourself out of that last one, though, because you went on the whole Matt Ryan bit, and then you talked about, well, maybe it's just for this year, and it's like, well, no, I'm talking about for all time. Can we now not talk about Julio Jones in the top, echelon of wide receivers anymore?
I specifically didn't have him up there to begin with.
Yeah, no. Well, that's what I was trying to say there near the end was, I got some pot shots from some randos on Twitter that didn't like that I didn't have him in my top 5 preseason.
Sorry.
There's a reason for that. Yes, he's good for a 200-yard game and 3 scores in one game, but then he's, had some injury concerns and all those other things I listed. But anyway, that is your pop quiz for week 5. Brian performed very well this week. We're back into some matchups. It's a short docket this week with the bye week, so we'll power through 3 more coming up here in a bit before we get down to our primetime matchups, and it's all next on the 515 Fantasy Football Show. You're hearing us on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. Welcome back. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM and 102.1 FM ESPN Radio, Des Moines, Iowa. Andy Hall, Brian Eikenberry, more matchups for Week 5.
Let's do the Seattle Seahawks at the Los Angeles Rams. Quarterback Russell Wilson, C+. Not looking the best and constantly under duress. One thing is certain, he will get scramble and running around points. He's going to get the yardage there, so he's going to help inflate his fantasy value. He is also second in rushing on the team. I do like his touchdown to interception ratio at 7-2 right now, so I like that. I'm not in love with Russell Wilson this week, C+. Also in part because of the whole running back situation we're in right now, the conundrum. Thomas Rawls, I'm going to give him a B-. I'm not big on his chances completely owning the backfield for 20 carries this week. Even though the Rams ranked 30th against the runs, Rawls wasn't great. That's why he was passed by Carson, period. So if you take that into consideration, you take Eddie Lacy into consideration, you take this other guy into consideration.
CJ Prozise.
We've got all this add-up stuff. We're right back to where we were at the beginning of the season when we said no running back is going to have 50% of the carries. So we're right back there before Carson ever existed. So Rawls does not have my vote of confidence. And you get McKissick. So who knows? Who knows?
Oh, he was the other one you were talking about.
Yeah.
So I was say
I had Prozise on there too, but
yep, he'll be back in the lineup.
We're right back to where we were week 1 talking about this backfield.
100%.
So I'm not confident in anybody here. Doug Baldwin, he's going to get a B+. 23 catches through 4 games. Clearly the leader in yardage, but the TDs are a little bit of concern right now. Certainly not where he should be performing with his second-round ADP, and he should be paying off, but he's not quite there yet.
It's still early.
It's still early. I get it. Paul Richardson, let's give him a C. Number 2 in yardage, but number 3 behind Jimmy Graham in targets. Tied in touchdowns. Not a great play, but could be a decent bye week fill-in if you've already missed the waiver train. Let's talk about Jimmy Graham for a second. He gets his targets, but Luke Wilson gets the touchdowns in the tight end position.
That last week he did, yeah. But Jimmy's still going to be targeted there.
But he's not good.
It's weird, isn't it? I mean,
He's
he was
not
such an
producing,
automatic guy in
period.
New Orleans in his time in New Orleans.
Hey, they look brilliant for making that trade. Moving on. Let's head to the Rams side of the ball. Jared Goff, I'm going to give him a B. Goff is looking great, and like I said last week, if Gurley goes off, Goff wins. 255 and 2 touchdowns last week, another good outing, and is only 36% owned in fantasy leagues. Snag him while you can, especially when we're entering the bye weeks. Come on, people. Gurley, I'm giving Gurley an A here. Had another good yardage week, but no touchdowns. That's fine. If my running back puts up 121 yards, that touchdown's icing on the cake. It's not required. Seattle gives up a ton on the ground, so expect plenty of work early while Goff can dunk and take pot shots in the passing game and not be forced to make the big plays. That's why I like Goff here. I think this is a win-win. Watkins is going to get a B-. He's going to pull Sherman in coverage, and he's going to get frustrated quick. Watkins tends to do great against mediocre talent, but struggles against bigly elite talent here. And then you got Cooper Kupp, C+. He only appears in the stat line from time to time. I don't see him having much action this week against the Legion of Boom, even though they're getting old. He and Woods are actually tied in yardage with Kupp having the pair of touchdowns. So
yeah, I think Woods is a better play than Kupp this week, but none of them really.
Yeah, none of them are going to make my roster.
Baltimore at Oakland. First, the Ravens. Joe Flacco, a C grade. It might be tempting to roll the dice on him in this matchup against a Raiders defense that has surrendered 6 passing scores on the season with no interceptions, while giving up an average of about 228 passing yards per game. You may think he's actually a decent play this week, considering that in his last 3 matchups against these Raiders, he's scored 25, 27, and 35 fantasy points. Don't fall for it, Brian.
I won't, man. Sorry, jeez.
Flacco's issues run deep, plus the Ravens are traveling cross-country. I always hate that. Alex Collins, I'll give a B grade to. He looks to have grabbed hold of the early down work, and as long as he can avoid ball security issues that have plagued him, he'll be in line for a decent amount of work in what should be a low-scoring, closely contested game on Sunday. Buck Allen, I'll give a C grade to. Far too volatile to count on as an every-week option, but in the right matchup, he's a decent flex. I don't see this as one of those, though. Jeremy Maclin, C+. I mean, he's had some success against the Raiders in previous head-to-head matchups, but he's also been a bust in a few. And that's kind of the whole story of this Ravens passing game. Mike Wallace, I'm leaving on the bench. He's been non-existent, although as a member of the Steelers back in 2010 and 2012, he did big business against these Raiders, catching 11 passes for 239 yards and 2 scores in those 2 matchups.
Quarterback's a little bit different.
He's since done absolutely nothing, catching 5 passes for only 66 yards and no scores in his last 2. Ben Watson, a C+. The Raiders are 9th most friendly defense against the tight end position, allowing 213 yards, 2 scores through 4 games. Watson should see a decent amount of targets, but the Ravens passing game just has not been a great bet thus far in 2017. Over to the Raiders, E.J. Manuel, I'll give a C+ to. Baltimore leads the league in interceptions with 9. Manuel may pile up some yards. He might throw a touchdown or 2, but the risk of turnovers in his first start, a very long time, isn't worth it. Marshawn Lynch, a B grade. The Ravens have typically been an elite run-stopping unit, but so far this year they've allowed the 8th most rushing yards, an average of 127 per game, a total of 3 scores to opposing backs. We've been waiting for Beast Mode to show up. Granted, he's no Le'Veon Bell, who torched Baltimore last week, but he is a guy you cannot bench yet. Michael Crabtree with E.J. Manuel, I guess I'll give him a B grade here. He has scored in his last 3 games against the Ravens, including a 3-touchdown performance in the team's only early October matchup last year. The only reason I'm not assigning him as an A is the lack of Derek Carr here. I think that's pretty obvious. Amari Cooper, listen, I'm leaving him on the bench. I am. I got to bench him this week. Baltimore isn't as great on the defensive side of the ball as many believe they are. But Cooper's having so many issues. Cannot
it's
catch
disgusting.
The ball. And his route running, he just isn't creating any separation. So I can't play him until I see something. closer to what we saw back in week 1 when he actually scored. Jared Cook, though, I'm giving a B grade to. Baltimore has given up 4 scores to the tight end position through 4 games. Cook will be a reliable target for Manuel on Sunday. He has the potential to hit pay dirt as he did back in week 3 against a similarly leaky defense.
All right, let's do Green Bay at Dallas. Quarterback Aaron Rodgers, easy A here. The Dallas defense looks terrible, and Rodgers was showing off his skills last week with a handful of touchdowns. Expect another 3 touchdown or more performance this week. Ty Montgomery, I'm going to give him the C+ here. Look, I don't expect him to take a lot of shots with those broken ribs. They're talking flak jacket and all this fancy stuff. I just don't trust my fantasy lineup, especially if I'm sitting at 2-2 or 3-1. It's going to be a tough play. Gets in the action, both passing and rushing. He has 3 total touchdowns, 3 yards per carry, but 8 yards per catch, nearly 400 combined yards. That rib is day-to-day technically, so we'll see. Jordy Nelson, huge A here as well. Biggest beneficiary if Montgomery is limped up like I expect him to be with those ribs. Jordy is just a few yards behind Davante Adams on the receiving list, but he has 5 touchdowns. They're unmatched in this. I think he adds another 2 here this week. I think it's a big, big, big week for Jordy Nelson. Davante Adams, we talked about that concussion. I don't think he's going to go. Cobb here, I'm going to give him a B+. I typically don't mention number 3 wide receivers, but in this Green Bay offense, all 3 of the wide receivers are within 4 targets of each other. That's ridiculous. And each of them do something completely different with their targets. That's what's fun to see this. Rodgers spreads the ball out for everybody. Plenty of action. Cobb's value just pole vaulted through when Davante Adams is out. So if you got lucky on this bye week fill-in to have Cobb sitting there and you're looking at someone like an Amari Cooper, as you mentioned, it's full on there. And I'll even give Martellus Bennett a B grade this week because Coach McCarthy said we have to get Martellus Bennett involved early in the game. And with Adams being out and Montgomery banged up, I think Martellus pays off big this week.
Yeah, Dallas's defense really not that good.
No.
They give up an awful lot of production to an opponent's passing game. So
you bet. Quarterback Dak Prescott, he's going to get a B- here. Under the radar storyline is the Packers defense, only allowing 188 yards through the air, and because of their QB pressure that they are able to put on here, Dak will be faced with more corner blitzes than he has ever seen in his life. And Clay Matthews coming around the other end. I don't like it. Zeke, I'm going to give an A to. Zeke's always an A no matter what. I believe the Cowboys will establish the run quickly and then dink and dunk their way into the passing game if they can. Dez Bryant, on the other hand, he's going to get a B-. Terrible year for his ADP or keeper status. Either low yards and a score above average and nothing. It's the QB play. Dez needs time, and Dak can't deliver on it this week especially. Now, for what it's worth, Green Bay has given up 100 yards to both Julio Jones and A.J. Green. So I will throw that out there. But I think they just come after Dak, get him off the rocker. Dez is going to go downhill. Terrence Williams, we've been over this 100 times over. I'm going to leave him on the bench. He only has 166 yards through 4 games, which isn't anywhere on my radar. Nobody else after this. And I guess you could give Witten a grade since I'm all good and fired up and motivated sitting up in my chair right now.
It's got to be somebody besides Bryant, don't you think? I mean, if it isn't Witten, maybe it's like Beasley this week. Maybe because Beasley typically has one game a year where he just like explodes.
Yep.
And this might be one of those.
Dez is that down the field. He needs that time for the quarterback to hold the ball for a little bit, to let his route develop. It's not going to be there this year. They're going to go just throw everything at Dak.
So my thought is there's Dez, and then, like I said, Beasley, or maybe it's the Bryce Butler game because we usually get one of those per year as well. But one never can tell. We do know Dallas will probably be throwing the ball an awful lot in this game to try to keep pace with a Green Bay team that'll have no problem scoring points. So there is that. All right, one more set of matchups, the Sunday Nighter, the Monday Nighter. In the next segment, we're also going to do a recap of the 515 Fantasy Football Listener League. Not that I really want to because it was not a good week for me.
It was beautiful.
Great week for Brian and Frank Gore, who won him the game. But anyway, we'll do all that next on 515 Fantasy Football. This is 1350 AM ESPN Radio. One more set of matchups, Week 5 of the NFL and the 515 Fantasy Football gang hanging out with you. Andy Hall and Brian Eikenberry. The Sunday Nighter is Kansas City-Houston. We'll start with the Chiefs. Alex Smith, a B grade. Fantasy's second highest scorer in most formats, Smith has been playing lights out, especially in exploitable matchups. In weeks 1 and 4, he torched the Patriots and the Redskins, respectively. This week, he gets a tough Texans secondary that ranks 9th in yards allowed through the air, less than 200 per game on average. They've given up 6 passing scores, but also have 4 INT on the season. Smith contributes some with his legs, which boosts his grade up a bit for me. Kareem Hunt is an A grade. Listen, the Texans, they're giving up only 3.7 yards per carry through 4 games, but they haven't seen a grinder like Hunt as of yet. He's a no-brainer start in any matchup that he just is. Tyreek Hill, a B-. Houston has a difficult secondary to figure out, Brian. They're too inconsistent to say whether they're great.
Drives you bonkers, man.
As they were back in week 4, they were great. Or downright awful, as they were in week 3. Hill, on the other hand, is pretty simple to forecast. Not necessarily a high-volume guy. He's dependent on the big play to determine his fantasy value week to week. Decent wide receiver 2 option, but can bust just as easily as he can boom. No doubt about that. The only other pass catcher I'm going to mention here, of course, is Travis Kelce, a B+. If Gronk can catch 8 passes for 89 yards and a score, I believe Kelce can accomplish a similar feat against this defense. Over to the Texans, Deshaun Watson, a B+. I'm convinced, aren't you, Brian? Deshaun Watson?
Yeah, I had a buddy of mine text me and he's like, who do I start? And I'm like, yeah, I think you should go with Watson, man.
I had one guy on Twitter ask me, it's between Big Ben and Watson, and I said, Watson.
Yeah, this week for sure.
I'm fully prepared to go in-depth on Watson and why I think he'll be a good start for you this week a little bit later. Lamar Miller,
wink,
a B
wink.
grade. Yeah, right. Lamar Miller, a B grade. Bell cow guys can find success versus these Chiefs. Melvin Gordon, for example, ran for 79 yards and a score back in week 3. Mike Gillislee ate up 3 scores back in week 1, as you probably remember. Miller is coming off his best game in a long while, blasting the Titans for over 120 combo yards and 2 scores. Should see a big workload again Sunday night. DeAndre Hopkins is a B+. Despite the return of Will Fuller and the Texans' running game emerging with Lamar Miller in week 4, Hopkins' opportunities didn't diminish. I got news for you folks. DeAndre Hopkins, he's a wide receiver 1, and he should be started every single week. Will Fuller is a B grade. While I don't expect a 2-score explosion every week from him, I certainly didn't his first week back from injury. That was one hell of a serious, awesome debut for him last week for Houston's super sophomore. The targets will be there. The production should follow. Ryan Griffin, I'm leaving on the bench. The Chiefs have yet to allow a tight end score this season, and he looked pretty bad in extended action in week 4. On to the Monday Nighter.
Woo, the Monday Nighter that I will be watching something else.
Oh.
Minnesota at Chicago. Quarterback, who's it going to be this week?
This week, he's probably Case Keenum.
Yeah, we're going to give him a C+. Look, hey, the Bears do have a middle-of-the-road defense against the pass, so that's that.
Yeah.
Latavius Murray's back in the lineup, so you lose to Dalvin Cook. So are they going to drop people back in pass coverage? I'm not too confident here. I have to go with a low grade on Case Keenum, and you probably weren't going to start him anyways.
Bears are actually really good against the pass.
Yeah. So then you go on to Latavius Murray. I'm going to give him a B-, making his starting debut. But if you heeded my words at the beginning of the season, I said if you're in the late round draft picks, grab the backup running back to some of these rookies and then give them a handful of weeks, and then you can drop them if there's nothing there. So in one of my leagues, I still have him stashed. In the other one, I dropped him 2 days ago.
Whoops.
Well, and not 2 days ago. It would have been on Friday.
Well, last week, yeah.
Just heading into the game to make some roster room going in. So whoopsies. Obviously, we had nothing to go off of Latavius Murray. I was a big fan of the guy. I liked him, but a little warning, Bears are 6th best against the run in yardage, so it may not be his best start of the season. Stephon Diggs, I will give an A to. Sure, he had some balls by virtue and a potentially terrible run game, so he should see plenty of work, averaging a touchdown a game and nearly 100 yards per game. So why not start Diggs here? Thielen, on the other hand, B-. Maybe the game flow, but I would expect him to move the chains quite a bit and keep the clock ticking away. 7 catches on the night is what I'm expecting. Maybe breaks a tackle or 2 for his first touchdown of the season. Rudolph, what are we doing here? I'm in the B range here just because of kind of what's happening with everything else. They're going to need to use him more because of the run game.
Yeah, he's been staying in the block a lot this year. That's been the difference between this year and last year. Last year, he was out running routes a lot more often. I think in a game like this, yeah, he's probably going to be out in pass a lot more.
Yep, I think so too. Murray's good in pass coverage, so he can block. and let Rudolph kind of do his thing, although he is averaging 25 yards per game. So,
are you starting any Bears in this game? That's what I'm waiting for.
No. So that's why I kind of was drawing out the Vikings there to kind of give us some time. Bears, Trubisky, bench. Starting a rookie against an above-average pass defense on prime time is never a good idea, especially when it's a divisional opponent. So, and 0 supporting cast. Jordan Howard, I'll give him a C+. He's going to get the volume. Vikings run D is pretty tight. So, I guess if you have to, it's bye-week fill-in. You planned for this, so whoops. Kendall Wright, bench. Deontay Thompson, bench. Tariq Cohen, bench. C above. Need I go further?
Yeah, not at all.
Okay.
The 515 Fantasy Football Listener League is presented by Iowa Firecracken. Iowa-owned, Iowa-operated, America-approved.
Boom.
Find them online at firecracken.com, on Facebook and on Twitter at iFirecracken. December 1st, fireworks are back on sale here in the state of Iowa. And
2 months.
And if you're in the market for beautiful things that go boom, we suggest you visit our friends at Iowa Firecracken. 3 local guys, Brian, that love fantasy football. Not as much as they love beautiful things that go boom.
Yeah, I'm hoping we can come and hang out on site, like opening day, and just like have some fun there.
I got a couple locations across our great state. I think the one I'm most interested in is once they get the Windsor Heights location squared away, and then we can maybe go visit the warehouse. That's what I'm
hoping
thinking.
so.
How about it, Maddie? Come on, buddy. A recap of Week 4 of the Listener League here. Brian's team squeaks out a win over yours truly, 106.16 to 103.10. A big F you to Demaryius Thomas for costing me a win. I'm not happy about it.
Awesome.
So bad. And I'm only up by like a sliver of a percentage of a point going into the Monday nighter, was it? Or was it the Sunday nighter?
Sunday night.
You had Frank Gore, and that was all that was left. And I'm like, please, Frank Gore, just lay an egg. Lay an egg. Frank Gore did what he did.
No, I needed the Colts to win that in my Survivor League. I would have cleaned out everybody out there.
So Brian gets the win over yours truly, but a very narrow margin there. Taco Corp annihilates Steve 96.58 to 89.72. Who's going to dethrone Taco Corp? That's what I want to know. Who's going to take that boy down?
I will next round.
You're going to do it?
Watch.
All right. Boomin' back on the winning track. Speaking of Matty. Edging out Petty and the Jets 75.58 to 62.38. Isn't it ironic, don't you think, that Petty and the Jets have less wins on the season than his team?
Ha!
A team we didn't think would win any games this year, frankly. The artist formerly known as Comb the Desert, Chops Oink, 111.58 to 67.42. Moo Cow Ricky gets his first win. Congratulations, pal. Cutting off Phillips Bolo Ties Air Supply, 120.66 to 90.82. And the Purple People Eaters hang Big Willie, his first loss of the season, 115.20 to 89.38. This week, Ricky's team of nothing but Pittsburgh Steelers play host to my squad. Taco Corp looks to avoid major upset by taking on Petty and the Jets. Brian's team will try to not get annihilated by Steve, who, by the way, has Matthew Stafford on his team. Have fun cheering for him.
I will.
Boomin' looks to blow up EBDBB&B, a.k.a. the artist formerly known as Comb the Desert. Shouldn't have changed your name, pal. Comb the Desert was much more fun to make fun of. Big Willie tries to bounce back this week against Phillips Bolo Tie. And our current number 1 seed, the Purple People Eaters, get our lovable losers, Oink, who have yet to win a game this season. Oink! What's going on, man? What's happening with your squad? How come you haven't hit me up on Twitter lately? You'd think he would have been asking like for our advice. Maybe he's, you know what's happening? You know what's happening? He's not going to come to us for advice.
Thought he could do it all on his own.
No! He's going to other shows who are giving him terrible information.
That could be too.
That is what's happening.
Good job.
Oink. Come on, dude. Seriously? Why are you cheating on us? Why are you treating us like this?
Come on.
Other shows don't give you the intel we give you, pal. We got the straight up dope here. All right? Straight up dope. I'm disappointed, frankly, in Oink. I've spent way too much time talking about him.
Yeah, you're way funnier at these when you write them when you're half asleep.
And
now
that was the problem.
Focused.
This time I wrote these, most of them right after you beat me this week, so I was kind of in a bad mood. So they were very kind of like blah, you know.
It's way better. It's like, dude, I wrote these at like 12:30 last night, so they're going to be terrible. Those are the funny ones.
The past couple of weeks, remember back in week 2, I believe it was, where I just couldn't even contain myself.
You couldn't keep it together.
I was laughing. Yeah, it wasn't quite as funny as quick dumps or things like that. I mean, that sort of moment on this show historically we always get one of those every year. So we're still waiting on something like that or Ollie's Heat or something to make us laugh. But anyway, that'll do it for the Listener League Week 4 recap. Best of luck to everybody except for Moo Cow Ricky this week. You suck. Stick around. We got one final segment. Brian and I give you our bargain bins. One quarterback, one running back, one pass catcher we think will do well for you this week if you need some help. Flea Flicker as well. All next on 515 Fantasy Football. Don't move. Final segment of this edition of the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM and 102.1 FM. ESPN Radio, Des Moines, Iowa. Again, we're also available digitally on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and our online home is espndesmoines.com. Invite you to like us on Facebook, 515 Fantasy Football. We're on Twitter at 515 Fantasy. I'm at Andy Hall Radio. He's at IkeFFB. That's IKEFFB. The Bargain Bin segment, sponsored by our friends at Twisted Vine Brewing Company on Westtown Parkway, West Des Moines. Online at twistedvinebrewery.com. They got 30 beers on tap, 25 of which are brewed on site, and they are absolutely delicious. They've got wine as well there at Twisted Vine.
They got pop, they got Gatorade, they got free popcorn, and some sweet pizzas.
Last week, you tried the root beer.
I was pounding the root beer. It was good, man.
I might have to do that this week. I am actually going to be on site this Sunday. They open their doors at 10:30 a.m., and, of course, Brian and I are hanging out there, watching football, watching the Red Zone.
Watching the Red Zone, exactly what you as a fantasy football fan need to be watching, period.
If you need some individual help setting your lineup or have any sort of questions for Brian and or myself, we will be there at Twisted Vine Brewery on Sunday morning starting at 10:30. So we hope you'll come out, watch some football with us, and enjoy some delicious craft beers. I'm going to try the pizza, too, this week, I think. Bargain Bins. We have been absolutely killing this. Just going to take a quick moment to brag about the fact that we have just been insanely good in the bargain bins this year, and I hope I'm not jinxing it here. Let's begin with the quarterback position, Brian. Who are you grabbing? Who's available in most leagues?
Available in most leagues, surprisingly, Andy Dalton. After the just tragedy start of the season, people bailed pretty quick. Quick is good, especially when you've got bye weeks coming up. Look, I know the Bills are a good pass defense, and Dalton has been down and out, but he is improving back into form, and you shouldn't have to worry anymore. Also, the bye weeks are happening now. It's going on a big stretch, so if you don't grab him now, you're going to get stuck starting Cutler in 2 weeks.
If you've been watching football in the past couple of weeks, chances are you've seen a highlight or two from this talented rookie out of Clemson named Deshaun Watson. He was owned in only 36% of Yahoo Fantasy Leagues earlier this week. I'm sure that number has gone up now that waivers have passed.
Well, which proves my point. 2 weeks ago, he was my bargain man, and if you don't grab him now, you're never going to get him. And you still don't listen.
I'm telling you, leads me to believe some of you aren't really paying attention, right? That's the deal.
Yeah, it's a longer show.
No doubt he should be rostered. He's a solid quarterback, too, with quarterback 1 upside. His Week 5 opponent, the Chiefs, have given up the 6th most passing yards in the league through 4 games. And check this out. The 2nd most rushing yards to opposing quarterbacks have been given up by the Kansas City Chiefs.
Nailed it.
Deshaun Watson this week. Who's your running back?
Running back is Duke Johnson Jr. He is low. It's in the 40s. He had over 200 yards. He has over 200 yards receiving, and his touchdowns are coming at the goal line. Now, while I did leave him out of my matchups, this is why. He is a play if you were in need of bye week fill-ins, obviously, and your waiver wire was cut up by the guy who had Dalvin Cook. I assume there was a rush on numerous people this week, and Duke is someone who likely slipped through the cracks.
He is a solid running back 2 option in PPR leagues.
Oh, 100%.
Solid PPR, solid number 2 running back for your squad. My running back this week is Wayne Gallman. Who? I may be nuts advocating you grab a Giants running back and starting him, but with Perkins at less than 100%, New York playing host to a Chargers team allowing the 2nd most rushing yards in the league at a nearly 5 yards per carry clip, why not roll the dice on a guy that could end up being the Giants starter sooner than later? Earlier this week, he was only owned in 4% of Yahoo Fantasy Leagues. Wayne Gallman. How about your pass catcher, Brian?
I went with wide receiver Jaron Brown. A lot of people dropped him when J.J. Nelson came back. They just assumed, he's done, he's out.
You mean John Brown?
Huh?
When John Brown came back.
Yeah, whatever.
Right. You said J.J. Nelson.
Yeah. So they were going to drop. They thought it was going to be J.J. Nelson. They dropped Jaron Brown. The Eagles have let 2 wide receivers on multiple teams go bonkers. So not only that one go off, they let 2 wide receivers on the same team go bonkers. Sterling Shepard and Tyrell Williams both had great days, so it is reasonable that Jaron Brown, who still sees plenty of targets, even with John Brown back, will have the same kind of payday.
Like it. All right, now I'm going to need a shower after I give this one. My pass catcher this week is Austin Seferian-Jenkins. What is this, Bizarro week? A Giants running back and a Jets pass catcher, huh? What am I thinking? Well, how about a positive matchup against a Cleveland Browns team that has allowed the 4th most tight end yards and the 2nd most tight end touchdowns this year, following a 2016 season in which they allowed the 7th most tight end yards and the most tight end touchdowns on the year. This week, Austin Seferian-Jenkins will finish as a top 5 tight end.
Whoa, ballsy.
And now I need a shower. But you know what? We've been killing this segment all year long, so I don't doubt myself at all in this one. If you need a tight end, and tight end's been volatile this year, man. Tight end's been awful. People don't like the tight end position this year because you just can't count on hardly anybody. But Austin Seferian-Jenkins, take a look at him this week. That's what I say. Brian,
take a look. It's in a book, Reading Rainbow.
Oh, that was one of my favorite shows when I was a kid. My man, LeVar Burton, one of my heroes. One of my heroes. And actually interacts with people on Twitter, which I find very cool because a lot of celebrities.
If he'll come on the show.
Yeah, that would be kind of
neat. Probably has nothing to do right now, so he's got some free time.
So you play fantasy football? No.
No, don't care. Come on.
Take a look. It's in a book.
Yeah.
Anyway, flea flicker time, Brian. What do you want to talk about?
Disciplining children. That was kind of my thing this week, so that really consumed a lot of my life.
That's really not interesting at all.
No, it wasn't. That was really kind of my thing. What do you got?
Man, it's been a really busy year here for me in terms of concerts. Listen, I've always been a guy like working at a rock radio station. I've been very active in terms of going to concerts. I've been to over 1,000 easily in my life. But 2017, this has been an incredible year for concerts, and we're not done yet. It's only October. We have plenty of shows lined up between now and the end of the year. So that's consumed a lot of my time. That has been it for me. No question about it.
You want me to talk more Star Wars?
No, I do not. In fact, we got requests. Actually, a friend of ours.
I don't care what he has to say.
He heard the show and texted us on Thursday near the end of it and said, no more. Enough with the Star Wars. I did like your theory. For the record, I liked your theory a lot.
Call of Duty World War II is coming out here pretty soon, about another month, so I'm kind of geared up about that.
You did get yourself a mini Super Nintendo.
Did get the Super Nintendo Classic. I did indeed.
How is it?
I haven't got it out of the box yet.
Wow.
It's just sitting there. I did see that there's some people on eBay who took the ROM off of the actual Super Nintendo Classic, erased old Super Nintendo cartridges, replaced it with Star Fox 2, and even made stickers. So you can take the never-before-released Star Fox 2 and play the illegal bootleg on an actual Super Nintendo cartridge that works in a Super Nintendo with a sticker. You can buy them for $70 out on eBay.
I mean, that's some real dork stuff you got going on there.
That's pretty awesome.
That's all I got to say about that. I'm not nearly as broken up about this one as I was about the original NES Classic.
See, I like this one way better.
See, I wasn't into it.
It's got Final Fantasy 3, Secret of Mana. It's got Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo.
All these
Super
things.
Mario RPG.
You're mentioning all these things I don't
know
anything
excited.
about. I don't know any of those
I'm also selling my entertainment package right now. So if anyone out there wants to buy some Nintendo, Super Nintendo stashes, I'm selling my honeypot here.
The hell is this, Tradio?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, Tradio's not on anymore, so we can refire it up here.
Well, that's the reason I can mention it on these airwaves, because it's not competing with us anymore. But anyway. If Brian's selling his crap, buy it.
Super Nintendo, NES, stuff in boxes. I got some pretty rare games out there. Lots of cool stuff.
I'm also excited about the upcoming hockey season.
Okay,
those
next.
of you here in Central Iowa might not realize that I am the in-house PA voice of the Des Moines Buccaneers, United States Hockey League team, USHL. And their home opener is coming up on Saturday night at Buccaneer
What does
Arena.
everybody yell?
Oh,
When they're doing like the little fight chant song kind of stuff? I don't understand what anybody's saying.
Okay, so hey, go Bucks.
That's it?
I mean, that we're going to beat the P-U-C-K out of you. You.
Yeah, that's what I'm like, what are they saying? I have no idea.
Because we're going to beat the P-U-C-K sounds like a different word. And
I know, but I can never understand that whole thing, so.
So now if you come to a game, and you can be my guest at a game sometime. You can even come down and sit in the box with us.
Ooh, that'll be fun.
I get to sit in the box with the microphone in front of me, and when there's penalties, we have players on either side of us. The Bucks are right next to us, and the other team is in the other box, and they're yelling at each other across the way and saying some pretty colorful things. And, I just love hockey. I'm a big fan anyway as a Minnesota boy. So, anyway, looking forward to the home opener at the Madhouse on Hickman. Urbandale, Iowa, 7:05 drop of the puck Saturday. Happy to promote that here on these airwaves. But anyway, that's the show this week. Again, if you missed any part of it, we're available digitally, so go back, listen at your leisure. And good luck in Week 5. For Brian Eikenberry, I'm Andy Hall. This is 515 Fantasy Football. Catch you next time.